Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone's doing awesome today. Today, we're going to be talking about building real relationships and slowing down in our marketing, which might seem antithetical, but we'll talk about it. And joining me today is Matthew Rawle. He's a writer, strategist, and marketer, and he works with consultants to help them build relationships through newsletters and podcasts. And his approach emphasizes candor, trust building, and long-term success. Welcome to my podcast, Matthew.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction, and I'm really excited to dig into our conversation today. Thank you again, Angela.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on. And this is a great topic as our lives have and our workflows and everything and processes have been inundated with AI. So, people love connecting with people, and that's just never going to change. So, but before we get into that, I do always want to ask my guests, like, how did you get into this business? So, what was happening in and around your life and the time when you decided to start working for yourself? And also, what problem did you feel compelled to solve for your clients?
That's a great question. I'm going to start probably a little bit before I should in terms of I was just really obsessed with the idea of communicating ideas, doing things that would help people understand. So growing up, was interested in being a writer because I just love the power and the utility of someone having a great idea and then helping that idea spread. I maybe not considered fiction as the way to do it because everyone there's a brain for you're a good nonfiction writer, maybe you can't write fiction or vice versa. So that was never really a consideration for me. But also I was a bit of a strange duck in high school. You probably would not find a lot of high schoolers reading Seth Godin. The Dip came out when I was in high school. Tribes came out when I was in high school. So it introduced me to this world of communicating simply, communicating easily. The Dip is less than 100 pages. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my career, going into university, I thought that it would be really a lot of my interests to pursue writing, yes, but also think about how those ideas could best be communicated, how to help people understand, how to help someone who has a challenge, for example, who doesn't really understand it. They just know the pain. They know that they're in pain. How could we help them not only understand and communicate that pain, but help them overcome that pain? And so, I freelanced for a number of years. I did in-house for a little bit. And now I'm back on freelance after a pretty successful stint, wanting to connect and help individuals, solo consultants, or solopreneurs with their marketing because there's a lot that people have kind of been informed or told about in terms of they need to do certain things a certain way, or there are certain expectations around how a business should be marketed, or there's just a lot on their plates and they don't have the time to do marketing well. So I want to help people bridge that gap and overcome that challenge of how can you market effectively and still do enough marketing, but just enough so that it doesn't compromise on what you have to do, doesn't compromise on the quality of the business, doesn't compromise on your clients.
Yeah, it can really take over everything if you're running in too many directions too. So I'm glad that you suggest they focus, right? Focus down on what's going to work, what's going to move the needle, and what you said about communicating simply. I think we all have this curse of knowledge as whatever we do in our profession, we know so much and we feel like we have to over communicate everything, but it really goes over our clients' heads because they're not the expert in what we do. We need to communicate on their level, right? And do it simply. I think, was it Mark Twain that said, you seem like a book nerd, maybe you know better than me, but was it Mark Twain that said, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead? Something like that.
You know what? I'm not sure, so let's just say that it was.
Okay, let's just say it is, but it's so true. It sounds silly, but it's like when you actually think about it, to be concise in your speech, that's a learned skill, right?
Exactly. And I think that when founders are closer, when solopreneurs are closer, solo consultants are close, they're close to the problem. They live it every day in their business, and so it's difficult for them to step back and say, a lot of this is maybe too technical or too in the weeds and not relevant to the client who is approaching it from a radically different perspective. You mentioned curse of knowledge, which was great, but also we as people just have a tendency to, when we're communicating to large groups of people, or in introductions to people. We just like we try to jack up the authoritative voice, the expert voice, and that's not really what works, because that people can sniff that a mile away. That, oh, maybe it was impressive to the person who wrote it, but it doesn't communicate to me in my language. I don't know. It's very generic. I don't know what they're talking about. It's just really wordy. And so I think that the more we can embrace just being ourselves as humans, the better we're going to be able to serve ourselves with our marketing, but also the better we're going to be able to serve our clients,
Mm.
because they are interested. I believe this come up on a previous episode, but they're interested not necessarily in the deliverables,
Yeah.
or even to some degree the outcomes. They're interested in working with us specifically.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because I have hired people. Like we all have a choice in who we work with, right? And I have hired people based on like shared interests because they show who they are, like not only what they do, but on their social channels and their newsletters, they show a bit of their backstory or their lives or what they're into, or if they have dogs or and these things like we might think it sounds silly to do that in marketing because we have to be all business all the time, but especially these days, people want to get to know you. I mean, the trust factor is low out there. I don't know about you, but I've turned on that screening feature on my iPhone because I get so many scam calls on my phone that I hardly even answer my phone anymore because there's always some kind of scam waiting for you around the corner. So our ability to trust has really been dilapidated. So we want to kind of see like, what are your values? What are you all about? What do I think it would be like to work with you? Not just, well, will I get the outcomes, but will you be a grumpy old, so and so to work with, right? Nobody wants that.
And I think what you just said about trust being eroded is a really important point. I recently had an experience where I reached out to someone on LinkedIn, just have a getting to know you chat. They'd been in my network for a while, just wanted to get to know them a little bit better as a person. And they said, happy to chat, but cannot guarantee work for me, cannot guarantee work for my employer. And so that's kind of just where the platform is, where digital communication maybe is a little bit, is there's always someone, a bad actor, a grifter who is looking to take advantage of people's trust and kindness. And so that is the shield that we put up by default. It's not necessarily, oh, this is a cool new person with awesome experiences, I want to learn more about them. It's, okay, so what's their angle? What are they actually trying to do here? And I think that obviously this is very stressful to navigate, but it doesn't have to be this way. You can, be trusting without, being blindly trusting. You can be present without, assuming the worst, or that someone's just going to try to pitch you in their first DM to you. That is unfortunate that people have, certain people have kind of prioritized the short term, like
Yes.
I need to convert you now, or this is a limited time offer, or I'm going to show you how I grew extra big on this channel by selling you my playbook that only worked for me in my specific context, and there's no guarantee that it'll work for you, but I really need you to buy this. And so trust, you're right, has been eroded, and it's difficult to maintain, especially where there's just like a lot of defenses. But I'm encouraging, or I'm advocating for, you don't need to reach everyone. You don't need to reach all of the people. You don't need to look for opportunities where you can insert yourself in conversations, or kind of be extra in that way. You just need to find some people that have common interests, or you're in common spaces, and just have natural chats, network, do the networking thing, and grow your relationships that way.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just me because I'm in this space, but I'm like I can sniff out like marketing, things like tactics a mile away. And I don't know, again, I don't know if it's just me, but the newest thing I see, especially on Instagram, I don't know if you see it as well. I get to the end of a post and then it'll say, like one of those carousel posts, and it'll say, if you don't follow us right now, you'll never see us again. I'm like, really? This is just another one of those fear-based, scarcity-based tactics, is it not? And there's always a new one every day.
And there's always a new one every day, because people are crafty, and people are willing to work the system. Not that long ago on LinkedIn, there was the whole comment for make sure we're connected, and then comment X word for this resource,
Yeah.
resource that was rarely ever sent. And I had actually spoken to someone who had done one of those a couple years ago, and they said, I did it as a growth hack, but all it got me was a bunch of people in my followers that, they're not good prospects because they just wanted the thing. It's like, there's no real inherent trust to doing that. It's just, I hesitate to say that, it's completely useless and that it would not apply to anyone ever, but there is no real value or utility to kind of engaging in those hacks because more often than not, you're just going to find people who are looking to take the easy road, and then even if they try to apply it, it's not going to work 1-to-1 if they even apply it in the first place or try to apply it in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk a little bit about what you were doing before you started your business and what kind of experiences you had that sort of shaped your philosophy around this, like slow down and market, relationship based marketing approach that you have today. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So a lot of it was just luck. I'm going to be very honest. I cannot understate the role of luck. One of my favorite, I'll call it an essay, but it was more like a blog post, was from Ben Brode, who was a pretty prominent video game designer, who wrote about how he got his big break at this company he wanted to work at. And he used a phrase which has always stuck with me, which is make your own luck. So he worked at a pizza shop, and he wanted to make sure that he was in the position to deliver pizza super late at night to the development team at the studio campus, and he would be the one who always made those runs. And over time, he got to know the people that were working there. And so when a position, a low tier position with him opened up, he knew everyone. He was the first to apply. He got in based on relationships, people that he knew, and then he was able to work his way up to quite a prominent position. And so he was proactive. He put himself in a position where he wanted to succeed or chose to succeed just through luck. So my experience was somewhat the same. I was looking for an agency gig back in, I think it was summer 2015. And I was, I wasn't just applying, I was pounding the pavement, I was meeting people, I was handing out resumes. And one person in particular, I, ran up the flight of stairs. It was the middle of summer, it was like 30 degrees. I was wearing a pair of shorts and I was handing off resumes. But I met this person, and obviously they didn't have anything at the time. But we kept in touch. We kept in touch for a number of years. And they have been kind of my ride or die in terms of, I still talk to them. I wrote them an email today in terms of helping me to navigate my career. Shortly after we met, they decided they were done with in-house, and so they wanted to go solo. And their network all ended up going, most of them ended up going the solo route as well after having an agency experience. So that's kind of been like the framework or the blueprint of where I want to be and the impact that I want to have. It's great to have the security of working for a company, the paycheck, the medical, all that. But at the end of the day, is that really what you feel like you want to do with your life? Is that really how you feel you're best going to serve the people you want to serve or help the people that you want to help? And so when it came down to it, when there was a time to make a decision, I decided that, it was trying to be an entrepreneur. It was entrepreneurship because it allows me to, not have to worry so much about, and this is maybe this will sound terrible, but making a lot of money for a lot of people who aren't me off of my work and off of my back, and being able to control what my day looks like, or who I choose to meet with, and the work I do, the work that has the most value, the work I get to decide, maybe it is this problem in the market, or maybe it's this problem in the market. And so there was that in terms of plotting my kind of career progression. The challenge itself was I noticed, and it's pretty obvious. It's gotten more obvious over time. I'm gonna share a cute little anecdote. I wish I could take credit for it, but there was. Let's imagine that you own a sandwich shop, and every day a man, let's call him George Ugle, comes to your sandwich shop, and you give him a sandwich, and he doesn't pay. And you don't mind that he doesn't pay because he will then go and tell 100 people about your sandwich shop. And that's a pretty good exchange. But one day, Mr. Ugle shows up to your sandwich shop and you give him the sandwich. But something's a little bit different. He's not telling people about how great your sandwich is. He's not telling people to come to your sandwich shop. He is out of his pocket pulling out a weird sandwich It's a little bit of your sandwich. It's a little bit of someone else's sandwich. It's a little
Mm.
bit of a Caesar salad, and he is walking around your restaurant offering people this sandwich of which he has an unlimited supply. And so it is obviously a very transparent metaphor for the rise of AI overviews and AI search engines and AI in marketing. It is less about the human factor now more than ever. AI, a lot of it's very trendy. Obviously, a lot of folks love generative AI, but I feel like it's kind of supplanted us. If you look at in terms of like raw efficiency, it's a lot easier to just say, "Hey, Gemini, I want to make these 10 social media posts based on my voice," and then run with them. But it's not human because it's not your thinking, it's not your ideas, it's not your frameworks, it's not you. There's no you in it. So it's a good. It's like another good growth hack, but it has very little meaning. And then there's that writ large across all sorts of industries, marketing in general. But I think also there's been this pressure to use these tools in a way that maybe doesn't serve companies or maybe doesn't serve businesses. Or you've heard the arguments: if you don't like generative AI, you're a luddite, you're going to get left behind. That is talk, but it doesn't have to be the reality, and it's not the reality. So that's a very long-winded answer. Hopefully, I answered the question.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes that AI stuff isn't even correct. So I don't know if people always know that, but it's, the little overview summary, like when you search on Google or whatever, it does that first. So it'll put that above all the other search results, right? And so it summarizes. Sometimes that's not even correct because I've looked at those before and I'm like, I know that's wrong. So I don't know if people realize that as well, but it is also pulling from your website. Like if I have a website with this topic that someone's searching on, it'll pull. So it's basically, like you said, stealing your sandwich. I love that analogy, and offering your sandwich that they didn't pay for to other people as a product now, and you've kind of helped them create that thing. So, I mean, that seems pretty unfair. I think there's things you can do to like turn that off, or like not let your site be crawled for that.
Mm.
But if you don't, someone is going to pull from somewhere else, right? And so you're limiting your clicks because that's showing up first, and maybe people will get the information they need. They won't even bother clicking on your site anymore. So,
Exactly, and it's a matter of these large companies, Google, Microsoft. These are the decisions that they've made to enrich and empower themselves. They are
right.
not going to change, or they have very little incentive to change because it's what works for them right now. And their only goal is not to serve the end user. It's not to serve the people who have their search engines on Google. It's not the sole consultant who's posting to LinkedIn. It is how can we maximize shareholder value.
Yep.
And it turns out when you're trying to maximize shareholder value, and the only thing that matters is that the line continuously and constantly goes up and to the right, some compromises are made that are maybe not the friendliest or not the most human. And then what ends up happening is that there's just layers and layers of artifice pasted over the human experience to the point where, as I mentioned, with people making AI posts of themselves or trying to pretend to be themselves,
Mhm.
you're not yourself. You're literally pretending to be yourself, and that is kind of an existential nightmare.
Yeah, it is a little bit. It's like a video game of yourself. Um, so, what's the solution? What's a solopreneur to do? How do we do this marketing thing? Where do you think we should be spending our time, and how do we maximize this? How do we fight these algorithms? What's your take on it?
I would say there is, even realistically, no world where you can escape an algorithm, but you can choose not to engage with them. You can choose to say this kind of marketing is what's going to work for my business and go a different route. So when I talk about marketing by default, it's all the things that we think we have to do, right? So if you're a consultant, you have to be on LinkedIn. You have to be posting blogs to your website. You have to, et cetera, et cetera. But in actuality, yes, these are still valuable tools. You can still leverage them, but are they all or nothing? They don't need to be all or nothing. You can choose not to be on LinkedIn. maybe you're a retail business, and I know people don't like Yelp very much anymore, but maybe Yelp is more important than LinkedIn, or maybe Blue Sky is more important than social network. The smaller the audience, the smaller the potential reach at, but the more likely it is that you're going to be able to find people and connect with people that are more in tune with what you're trying to do, or your business or your service, or just in terms of helping solve the problem that they need you to solve, or they want you to solve, or that they're experiencing or challenged by. I think that there's been a lot of um, some cost fallacy in terms of, yeah, LinkedIn like was great 10, 15 years ago, and it worked well for up to a certain point. You'd make a post and it wouldn't just be seen by, I think it's like 8% of your network now, based on who interacts with it, and trying to like detangle a very complicated web of who sees it at what time and in which context, when in actuality, you don't need to be beholden to that, because marketing doesn't revolve around being good at LinkedIn. If you're good at LinkedIn, if you're good at Twitter, yes, if you know the algorithm, you can succeed. But being good at those platforms does not make you inherently good at marketing. It's if you take the time to learn LinkedIn, you're going to succeed on LinkedIn. But that's also not the only way to reach your target audience or your target prospects. I think that a lot of folks have kind of, especially today with the job market, and a lot of people are desperate, and a lot of people are looking for, the short term value of, I need to make the money, I got to get the paycheck coming in. They're struggling to reconcile the fact that their short term needs are. It's not that they're not valid, but short term just begets short term at the end of the day. If you want to make a long term investment, if you're thinking of your business as a business and you want to ensure it succeeds for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, long term definitely needs to be a consideration. And what do I mean by long term? It's owning your audience, it's making your email list, it's having a platform like a podcast where you are actively and consistently sharing your unique value, your unique insight to people that already want to hear from you. Not, oh, I followed you or I connected with you and then I'm never seeing your posts because I'm not being served them by the algorithm. It's, I'm actually seeing them because they're coming to a channel that I use already, my email inbox or my podcast player consistently, and it's always available to me for me to consume whenever I choose.
Hmm. Yeah, so true about owning your audience. I mean, yeah, that's, you never know when something's going to go down. I gave you an example when we were chatting in the green room before this started about a friend of mine who, and she's a marketer, she lost her Instagram channel, just poof, gone one day, no explanation. We hear these stories all the time. They don't really have to give any explanation. There's these huge companies behind these channels, and just do what they want. They kind of run all over you if they want to. It seems like I've heard these stories, right? It hasn't happened to me, but I've heard of other people. Luckily, she's a smart marketer, so she had an email list. But you still want the. It's like having a diversified investment portfolio. You want all the things, right? So she had to start that from scratch. But if she hadn't had her email newsletter, she wouldn't have been able to get in touch with those people and say, "Hey, this thing happened. Follow me over here now. I'm over on this other channel because my other one got killed." So you need that backup system, right? So how do you suggest someone starts if they don't have a newsletter, if they don't have a list? How do you even start with that? How do you get people interested in on that list?
In terms of getting
Uh,
people to,
yeah, creating that list, and like, how do you use a platform like LinkedIn to gather interest, to get people to get on the list? I'm sure there's different ways, and it's different. Like this podcast, right? That could lead to subscribers, or like, what do you suggest people do? How do they figure out how they should start creating that list? What's the tactic they need to
right,
use?
thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
So I think that there are a lot of good platforms for broadcast, but none of these platforms are like inherently additive. So if I make a post on LinkedIn promoting my newsletter, there is very little chance that a substantive amount of my audience is going to see that post in the first place, and then my conversion for that newsletter is probably going to be very smaller numbers. I would say that it doesn't necessarily matter in terms of trying to convert an audience from another. It is just go ahead and do it. Just start the newsletter. Don't worry
Mhm.
about how big the list is, because the people that want to subscribe will find it, or you will communicate it to them in a more direct way than just making a post about, hey, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Um, I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that, oh, I'm going to launch a newsletter, so I need 100 subscribers, or it's not going to be worth doing, or I need X number of subscribers, or it's not going to be worth doing. It's not going to be a good use of my time or investment. But just do the thing. Just start the thing. The value and the utility and the beauty of having a small subscriber list, or a small email list, or a small audience is that I think it's very interesting that the perception is that you need so many numbers, when in actuality, like I believe you said when we were checking for how many customers you actually need in a year. I had a conversation with someone last week who has an SEO firm, and they're doing quite well. And they said, "Oh, in 2026, I need 3 more contracts, and I'm done for the year." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's January. That's incredible. You don't need. You're not trying to sell, 40, $500, $600 audits. You do not need that kind of scale. You do not need that kind of scope. That's an easy way to burn yourself out. That's like a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
What you do need is the ability to have a platform you can leverage consistently, that you own, so that no one else can interfere with it, tinker with it, choose who sees your material, what have you. And then you can consistently build trust with the people on that list, or leveraging that platform. Getting in
Yeah.
front of them on a regular cadence, as opposed to just whenever something else decides or feels like they should, is how you deepen those relationships.
Yeah.
And also just be like being proactive. Sending broadcast emails, or just like individually chatting to folks, like, hey, X, I realized that I haven't reached out to you in a little while. I noticed that you're subscribed. Just wanted to see how things were going, and
Mhm.
being open and being vulnerable in terms of not, at the end of the day, we have businesses to run, but not everything needs to be a business transaction. It doesn't need to be transactional at all. You can just try to be a good human living in the world, and make time for people and listen to them, and make sure that they're seen and hear their challenges. So even if you're the one who is primarily doing the communicating, they still feel like, oh, I'm an important part of this community of subscribers, or of people. And it fosters trust, it fosters deep connection. So maybe they don't have this problem now, but in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whenever they have it, they have a relationship with you, and they're going to come to you, because not only are you already, the best person positioned in their mind, you've put in the effort. You've not tried to growth hack. You've not tried to go the short term route
Mhm.
of shouting and saying the incendiary thing to try to get attention. You have established, just through your community, through your vulnerability, and through your honesty, that you are in their corner. You will do whatever it takes for them to overcome the painful problem that they're having. And they're confident in you, and confident in the ability that you can demonstrate, because you've spent years demonstrating it to them, and they know you have integrity, because you
Mhm.
are a person who is always there for them, and
Mhm.
doesn't like try to shortcut them, shortchange them, or cheat them in any way.
Yeah, I think it's important to just start, like you said, just start somewhere. We, a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, we get caught up in like the likes and the views and the impressions and all these quick little wins that seem so, they kind of boost our ego, right? But they're not necessarily doing anything for us. So I think if you can get over that and just start slow, start small. I know you're a fan of the marketer Seth Godin, and he talks about this. He's like, just focus on serving 100 people very well, and then move on to the next group and the next and
Mm-hmm.
the next. So you don't have to do all the things and at a huge scale. Because like you say, how many clients do we need in a year? We can't. We're as solopreneurs. That's like it's testing our limits. We can't do that well, right? So um, scaling back and being more intentional, and just finding that balance of like um, putting out content that's valuable, right? And making people feel seen and heard and valued, and even reaching out every now and then to say, hey, is there anything you want to hear from me? Like, um, having like that two-way communication, even in a newsletter where it often seems like it's just a one-way communication. But I've replied to those kinds of email newsletters where they want your feedback or they want to hear something from you, and it's always great to hear back from them. You're almost like, ooh, I feel like, I get backstage access to this rock star person that I'm following, right? And it just makes you feel good, and that they actually answered you and care to hear your thoughts. So I think that's a great way to do things and get even more fans of your business who spread the word for you as well, right?
I think also cold email gets a bad rap, but
Yeah.
how I'm trying to think of how I should phrase this. Cold email is not good where you make a lot of assumptions about who has a problem or what the problem is, or that you're trying to sell. Like if you had a cold email that's just like, hey, you are X business, you have a Y problem, here is Z solution. Well, that's great. You didn't do any research about me or my business or how I operate, or so it gets a bad rap, and that kind of cold email certainly gets a bad rap, and it should. But some of my greatest relationships, personally and professionally, have just come from being proactive and reaching out to someone who was doing a cool thing, or someone I felt like I wanted to get to know. There is someone in my network who I'm very, very proud to call a friend, who had a stationery company and still does. And I just reached out to them one day. It was like 2017, 2018. And I just said, hey, I really like your products. I think what you're doing is really cool. Let's keep in touch. And they were genuine enough and they were polite enough and they made the time to reply. And so even like 8 years later, they're still, they're a very successful entrepreneur, but they made the time for me and we just chatted for years and years and years. And I think having the ability to realize that, no, you're not bothering someone when you genuinely want to support them and when you are a fan of their work and what they're doing. And even if you make it so that you ask for like, hey, could I grab some time with you, maybe for just 20 minutes to chat about this thing you've written about or that you're going through. I'd really like your perspective. It's not icky or yucky because again, it's just that human connection. And no, you can't control. Not everyone will get back to you, and that's fine. People have to live with that. But I think that being really intentional with just like, I hesitate now, I didn't call it cold email, but just reaching out to folks and not even networking, just like trying to get to know other people, trying to get to understand other people and their perspective. Maybe they have a radically different business from you. You're a branding expert, maybe someone who did some nature or some wildlife photography. Maybe that's really appealing. And you love their shots, and you can't stop thinking about them. So you want to know like how they composite their photos and what their camera is and what kind of lighting and aspect ratio they're using, and just like bridging the gap of not everything needs to be business, not everything needs to be professional. You can just get to know people. We're blessed to live in the world where you can just reach out to pretty much anyone you'd like to, and a lot of folks are so myopic that I got to sell when relationships are beautiful and they can come from anywhere. So I wouldn't say the world needs more cold email, but just reach out to folks. They're doing cool things all the time, and you can learn so much and improve so much just from talking with them.
Yeah, definitely. I've reached out to some really cool people. We met on LinkedIn, right? So I've met lots of cool people on LinkedIn, and just like there was no agenda behind it. I just thought, oh, that's really cool. I'm just going to say something about it. We all, how many compliments do we get in a day, right? I just want to be that positive person who's like, I know being an entrepreneur is hard. So like if I see something, I'm going to give kudos to that person for doing a great job or whatever. Why not? Right? Or I'm genuinely curious. I think I'm part feline because I'm just like a curious cat on the inside. So I'm genuinely a curious person. I ask a lot of questions. My husband says I ask too many questions, but that's just who I am. And so I love learning from other people and their experience or getting their ideas on what I'm working on. I had a really great conversation with somebody on LinkedIn about, we were both trying to develop a course, and he gave me some really good and honest feedback. And it's like, maybe it's not really what I wanted to hear, but I needed to hear that from his perspective, because we get in our thing and we're in this vacuum and we don't really understand how other people perceive it and how they see it. So we need that feedback. And it was really great. And he's a really cool dude. And I learned a lot from him, and I, could have taken a wrong turn with this thing I was developing, but I got back on course because we just chatted and there was no like, sales pitches or anything like that. And you never know, like relationships develop from that. People remember that. Like, there's that saying that's like, not everyone's going to remember what you did for them or with them, but they're going to remember how you made them feel, right? And that's just how it is. That's never going to change, no matter what AI comes along. That's always going to be constant.
No matter, I think digital marketing is maybe a net negative for how people perceive marketing because, as you said earlier, it's all about the impressions and the likes and the instant validation. But it doesn't need to be. It never needed to be. If you do a really cute mailer campaign and you just like send postcards to local businesses that you want to work with, that's effective marketing. It doesn't have constant validation. It's not going to get you like a bunch of social clout if that's what you're after, but it works because it's a relationship builder. It's a relationship starter. People will remember you as the person who sent the postcard, and if they're inclined, they'll reach out. And maybe not everyone will, but it's a way to exist in the world beyond just the computer screen.
Yeah, get creative. I remember when I was first applying for jobs. It was a tough market. It was a long time ago, maybe like 30 years ago. Just aging myself. But anyway, it was a tough market back then, and I remember having to get creative. I dressed up as there was no like Uber delivery or anything back then, but I dressed up as like a Domino's pizza delivery person. I just like put the logo on a hat and I grabbed a box from a Domino's place, and I couldn't get in touch with a decision maker. So I put my resume in the pizza box and I pretended I had a delivery for them that they needed to come pay for. So that's how I got them out of their desk and to the front office to come talk to me. And then I said, no, I don't have pizza for you, but here, I want to give you my resume. And so I got a letter, I think I still have it, from an agency. They said, basically, I wish we had a job for you. This was great. We value your creativity, and that was so awesome. So sometimes you just need to get a little bit creative with things and do like forget the algorithm, do something else that people aren't doing, but with authenticity and genuineness, and people can feel that. They feel the difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think that the algorithm and search engines have made people forget that they are amazing humans because when you make a post, it's all about how well the post did, and then you got to make another, and then you got to make another, and then it sucks you in a way that isn't healthy for your relationship to the platform, for your own mental health. So being able to take a step back and say, this is a great tool, but I don't need my life to revolve around this. I don't need for LinkedIn to always be open, for example. I can just do things that impact my business, that reach my ideal customer, and value my time more or better. It's not about always being in the right place at the right time. It's about being in the right place enough times so that the credibility grows, the trust builds, and then they're ready. Then the client is ready to have a sales conversation. It doesn't need to be so. It doesn't need to be scattershot. It doesn't need to be like all encompassing. You don't need to do the whole, I'm going to post on LinkedIn 3 times a week and then make 30 comments, and that's how I'm going to make LinkedIn work for me. It doesn't need to be that complicated. Marketing doesn't have to be complicated. Digital marketing has made it extremely complicated, but it really is just build those relationships, get out into the world and find people that need you and help them. That's all it takes.
Yeah, before we had social media, that's what it was, right? I guess we had the yellow pages and things like that, but it's basically relationship building. The quickest win to a new client or a project is always through relationships. Even if you're applying for jobs, it's like they always say, it's who you know, right? That not what you know necessarily, but who you know that's going to get you that job. So relationship building is key. I had another point to make, but now I forgot it. I can't remember, but anyway.
That's fine. I'll piggyback off that, and a lot of job seekers today are not put in a good position inherently because you have to do the online application, and then the AI chatbot will review it, and then they'll send you back in like an instant rejection. But that's not to your advantage because hundreds of people are going down that route.
Yeah.
and it's very competitive. So look for opportunities to stand out, meet like maybe not related to the specific job you want, but like meet other people who are adjacent to it or have experience in that field, that vertical. Talk to them, get to know them, build your relationship with them, build that trust and credibility, so that when an opportunity opens up that they hear about, they know to refer to you. It's not a matter of everything's going to work out in the short term. The long term is uncomfortable and painful sometimes, but it's better to have a long term plan than just flounder a bunch in the short term, try a bunch of things that you don't stick long enough with them with them to work, or constantly pivoting between, oh, I did this video and it got 100 views. Why did my next video only get 30 views? Or this posted 8,000 impressions and then my next post got 50. I just need to make more posts, or I need to make more videos. You need to be willing to have the confidence and the faith in yourself as a brilliant human, as an individual, to know that whatever challenge you're thrown, you can navigate it. Yes, you might have to tweak your systems a little bit. You might have to do some things that are outside of your comfort zone, but they can be added to your comfort zone. You can come to like the things that you're doing. You don't need to market more. You often just need to market less, but market the ways that matter to you and that energize you. And then that is how you can like carve out your own identity, your own niche, your own brand. Because tons of people are going to go the route of, I got to be on all the social media platforms. I got to be constantly making content. But what's the value of? Yeah, you could do like 10, 30-second shorts, or the expert would sit down and they would make a 2-hour video on a topic, and that demonstrates their knowledge, their credibility. The impact is greater than the spread. And so I also really encourage people to look for things that have a larger impact.
Yeah. So if an entrepreneur is starting out or restarting, I told you I lost my email newsletter list, but I had to look at it as an opportunity to start afresh because it was years and years old, and I've since morphed what I do in my business. So it's an opportunity to start fresh. So if an entrepreneur is starting a newsletter or a podcast, how can they design it to attract those real prospects and build those real and deep relationships from day one, instead of chasing all those metrics and things that don't really convert in their favor?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. Any sort of marketing, do customer research. First and foremost, customer research. Understand, even if you've been in business and you have a good understanding, reach out to people, reactivate some relationships if you can. But understand how people are currently seeing their worst problem. Understand how they're framing it. Understand its impact. When you do customer research, it prevents you from making assumptions. And the most injurious thing you can do in marketing, in my opinion, is make assumptions. You can't assume that people need this knowledge that you have. It's personal knowledge. You said you can't make assumptions around people needing specific types of knowledge or knowledge at a specific time. So always do your research. You don't need to talk to a lot of people. 5 to 10 people should be more than sufficient, but do your research. Once the research is done, use it as a content engine. Make content around the insights that you pulled from your research. You don't need to do a ton, but make sure that it actually does speak to people's problems. And then once the content is done, because you do not want to put yourself in a position where you get behind, maybe you have a bunch of really juicy client projects you're about to dive into, and you want to make sure that your marketing still gets done, or you don't have the time to consistently prioritize it, do it in advance. Or if you're confident that you can still get it done, put some time aside, like during the week. There's this methodology, profit first, where like you take 5% of the profit a business gets. Do marketing first. Spend like 5% of your time marketing, and then allocate the other 95% to what you have to do. Be consistent. And then once the material is sent and the newsletter is all spun up, and then you're sending it to folks that are the folks that you talk to, the folks that you researched with, other folks in your network that you already know or they're interested, or maybe you post it to your website and they sign up and they're just like, oh cool, this is another person I can stay in touch with, or this is another way to keep tabs with you. Just do it. Just send the thing a little bit at a time, a little bit over time. If you're doing a monthly, maybe a weekly is more to your customers' preferences. If you're doing a weekly, maybe folks really want to hear from you daily. Maybe that's too much for some people. Make sure that it is aligned with what your customer expects, and make sure that you're really firm in establishing those expectations, because no one likes signing up for a newsletter, forgetting they signed up for it because they didn't get it for 6 months, and then suddenly getting a newsletter from someone and then being like, I don't
Who is
remember
this?
anything about this. It has no context. I don't remember this person. Where's the value here? Make sure that you're always not making assumptions or trying to minimize your amount of assumptions. Make sure that you're creating time to, if you can't do it consistently, do it up front, and then ensure that you're setting expectations with your audience so that they know when to hear from you.
I love that. Minimize assumptions. So doing that customer research, that's something I do with clients too. So that's, I'm glad you stated that, because yeah, we don't know necessarily. We think we know. And, if you're like I was years ago, you're like too sheepish to reach out and, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to, ask for a bunch of their time. Well, first of all, it doesn't have to be long. It could be a few questions. It could be an online survey, drop down, options. You can make it really easy, but people love being helpful. Like, it's just part of our nature. They love being helpful and they love sharing their opinion. So why not? I mean, some people might say no, but most people that I've asked, they've always said yes. And you already usually have some kind of relationship with them. So they're probably going to want to help out. And as far as length of emails and things like this, there's a guy I follow. I don't know if you know him, but you might want to check him out. He's excellent. And I've learned a lot about email marketing from him. His name is Jonathan Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And you love communication. He is a very good communicator because he's very concise. He can write one or two sentences, and there's so much gold in those sentences. You can see that he's really thought through what he wants to say, and he's put so much value. It could just be two sentences long, and that could be you. That could be your email style, right? It doesn't have to be this long essay. In fact, probably converts better if it's shorter. I don't know if you know anything about that, but
I think that's a really good point. And remember that I think a lot of folks get caught up on the idea of a newsletter being a written communication. It
yeah.
doesn't need to be. You could do a daily video. You could do a weekly video. You could write it for sure if you wanted to. But it's the format is not constrained by the function, so long as it can be sent to someone's email inbox and they can open it from their email inbox. It doesn't need to be a certain thing. A nature photographer might choose to have a newsletter that's just pictures, and there's nothing wrong with it. If it converts for their business, if it works for them, go nuts.
I think that's a great point. And also, to that point, I think it has to be something that works with your personality, right? I love having conversations. That's why I started this podcast. I'm curious. I'm asked questions. So it made sense for me. If you're, I would say I'm an introvert as well, but I've kind of gotten over it. So if you're more of an introvert and you're not there yet, maybe something else is better for you. Maybe writing is better for you, right? So it has to be something that goes with your personality. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. You're not going to stay consistent with it, right?
I'm going to give two examples that are just top of mind because they might be helpful or I feel they're relevant. The entrepreneur I mentioned who has a stationery company who I've been in contact with for quite some time launched his newsletter several years back. But his first 24 issues were just, I'm an entrepreneur. I have experience doing things. Email me your questions and I'll answer them in my newsletter.
Oh, I love that.
He used it as a public Q&A to dig into reader questions, but also just establish his credibility and his knowledge and his expertise beyond the business that he had, because he was just talking to people, just answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really brilliant and maybe undervalued way of getting your first dozen or however many pieces of content spun up, is because it takes the pressure off you from needing to write the perfectly published thing, the perfectly polished thing, or get you out of your own head. You're just answering your question. You're just it's the simplest form of communication. And then Louis Grenier has a podcast called Everybody Hates Marketers, and he was lucky enough to get Seth Godin on in 2019.
Oh, wow.
And what he had done was, it would have been very easy, obviously it's Seth Godin, it would have been very easy to do an interview style show, just ask him questions about his books and his experience. But he said, what we're going to do is we're going to start a business together. You can't use the name Seth Godin, you can't use your likeness, and this business has to succeed in a certain amount of time. So it gave not only Seth an opportunity to showcase his stuff, not that he really needed to do that, but it gave Louis the opportunity to kind of work alongside Seth, which is an incredible opportunity just from a podcast appearance. And it helped to establish Louis more, because he was working, he was actually applying his knowledge with Seth Godin. which is incredible.
Yeah, it's like a free mentoring session. Why
Yeah.
not? That's brilliant. Well, I love that. I love everything you said. So much helpful information here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us. Before we go, I would like to ask you, where can people find you and connect with you online?
Sure. I can be found at matthewrawle.com. That's MATTHEWRAWLE.com. It's right there. I also am, despite all my arguments against it, I am on LinkedIn. It is probably the thing that I do not care for the most and can't stop using, because it's not about what I post. It's not about anything I can do. It's just about being able to meet. It's a mechanism to just meet great people and have interesting conversations. And so long as it continues to offer the ability to do that, to get in the DMs, to chat to people, to understand their problems, their issues, I'm going to keep using it.
I like it. I like LinkedIn. I've also gotten onto Substack recently, and I really like that platform. If you're into blogging, and I guess it's like a newsletter platform. I'm just new on it, so I haven't done much on it, but I like the format and the style, and yeah, it's an interesting place. So
It's
maybe
very clean,
check it out.
and I hear a lot of good things. A lot of folks really like their social features and how
Yeah.
discoverable your material on there is. I
Hmm.
know that it is quite popular. It is a good place to be. I know that there are, maybe certain people don't like the social features. They don't want to have a paid newsletter. But luckily, you don't need to have a paid newsletter, and you
No.
don't need to use the social features. It's just a very convenient way to get your emails out there on a platform, on a website that you can have on there, that their editor is very clean, and then you can just go nuts. You don't need to worry about like getting the right plan for your newsletter, or having like how many emails you're going to send out, and
Yeah.
try like, or like someone encouraging you to go the paid route, because that's like how they make their money. But you can just keep it free, just keep it open, and
Yep.
people can use it for as long as they want, just to enjoy it, just to have it be free.
Yeah, it's pretty slick, and I like it. And if you're not tech savvy, it just formats it for you, and it becomes evergreen content for you. So, I like it a lot. But anyway, thank you for joining me today, Matthew.
Thank you so much. I really had a lovely conversation, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Of course, and everybody take care.